Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Agent is In. Got myself, I'm Cody Valle. I'm the head of community here on the CFEngine team. We've also got Nick Anderson here as well with us, as well as Ula Herman, who is our product manager for CFEngine. I think he's on here. He just can't see his video. Special episode here today. This is episode number 12. It's our 1-year anniversary of The Agent is In. So thanks for everybody who's attended one of these sessions or is here today. Today we are going to cover Spacemacs for CFEngine specifically. So Nick, maybe you want to give us a quick intro before you dive into, I guess, maybe what motivated you to cover this topic and what you're going to show here today.
Yeah. So I still consider myself a Vim user, but I became an Emacs user a few years ago because of some features in Emacs. And Spacemacs is kind of what made it possible for me to start using Emacs because I can't let go of all of my Vim key bindings. So it's super easy to set up. And it really gives you some access to some cool features for working with CFEngine policy, as well as some other things. But before we started talking about Spacemacs, I did want to just point out a few things, a few blog posts since the last time we met. There's a few changes in behavior that are upcoming. The way that files promises work and under which conditions they get created by default is changing. So check out these blog posts. Bundle agent main, part of the MPF, that bundle is being renamed to facilitate running parts of your policy without the whole. And then also directory permissions and executable bit is changing. It used to be that if you requested read permissions on a directory, by default, CFEngine would go ahead and also give you execute permissions. Typically, this is what people want, but we are changing that. So these posts cover kind of those changes in behavior and then things that you might need to do to deal with that. So with that,
if I can
on and
one more thing here to that as well. So we've got Ula here who has done and produced a number of other pieces of content that are available on YouTube, which is probably where you're watching this if you're watching the recorded version. So if you're new to CFEngine, he's created, I think, 3 or 4 videos, maybe even more at this point, that are part of the Getting Started with CFEngine series. So definitely check those out if you have an opportunity.
Great. All right, so let's get going. So I've got a fresh desktop here with some notes. Okay, so we're going to start off. I use org mode formatted files. That's what this markup is. It looks kind of like Markdown if you're familiar with that. But after we get Spacemacs going, I think we'll start seeing why this is great. But first thing we need to really do to get Spacemacs set up, which is Spacemacs is a distribution of Emacs config to make it easy to kind of add a bunch of different features into your editor. So the first thing we really need to do is to install Emacs. So I'm going to get Emacs installed. And then the next thing that we need to do is to clone down the Spacemacs repository into our Emacs configuration. So let's get that done. This is going to switch us to the development branch by default with Spacemacs. They don't have stable releases very often. I think most people track the development branch. So just don't be surprised when this, we go to Emacs and we look, we are on the develop branch. All right. So next we need to launch Emacs. Starts up Spacemacs. It's going to ask us a couple of questions. Let me move these things around here. So I'm going to go ahead and take the defaults here. Whoops. Let me get out of here. Thanks. There we go. So it's going to ask us a couple of questions. Default editing style. I use the Vim key bindings. That's the default for Spacemacs. We're going to take that, and the standard distribution Spacemacs. I'm going to take that as well. This is going to take a little bit of time. It's got to download a bunch of packages for those base layers and get those set up. So while we're waiting on that, let's move on and install CFEngine. So we'll need CFEngine so that we can do syntax checking on the fly and some other things. So I'm going to use cf-remote, which comes from pip, to be able to grab the latest package. Oops. So we got to install pip, and then pip usually likes to be upgraded after it's installed. So we're going to go ahead and upgrade it. Did it finish? Oh, no. Paste. There we go. Let's upgrade pip. And now we can pip install cf-remote. Maybe. Here it comes. All right, so as these warnings indicate, puts it into the .local bin directory, which is not in the path. But if we look at our profile, we can see that there's already some stuff in here for putting that in the path if it exists. So we'll go ahead and source this so that cf-remote is in our path. Great. And now that we've got cf-remote, we can look to grab the latest packages for Ubuntu. So version master, I'm going to take from master, it's the latest. List, edition, community. All the URLs for these things. We can filter that down. Ubuntu 20. And then we can use this to install it. Oops. Or download it into temp. And now we can install that. This is warning us. I'm running on Ubuntu 22 right now, but we don't build packages for 22 yet. It's just out. So I'm grabbing the Ubuntu packages from 20. And that's done. So then the next thing that we want to do is we want to be able to execute as an unprivileged user. So typically CFEngine runs as a privileged user, but you can run it unprivileged, and it's handy, especially when you're working with your editor in your workstation. So going to go ahead and seed the master files that ships inside the package into .cfagent inputs, which is inputs for the local user, as opposed to var CFEngine inputs, which you would typically see for the privileged user. And we're also going to link in the bin directory there because it's going to be looking for the local users CFEngine bin directory. And now we can see cf promises show vars. And we can see a whole bunch of variables and things like that that are coming from that policy framework. So we got that part done. So let's go ahead and switch back over to our editor. Okay, it did finish compiling a bunch of these things. So we can go ahead and move on to configuring the editor a little bit more for CFEngine. So I'm going to run space, and you'll see when you do this in Emacs, in Spacemacs, when you hit the space bar, you get this nice menu system that pulls up about the next keys that you can hit to kind of drill down to what you're looking for. And then the key bindings are kind of semantically mapped. So I want to look at a file, and then I would like to, I'm looking for Emacs Spacemacs files. You can see here, so I'll press E. And then I want to edit the Spacemacs config, the dot file. So I'm going to go ahead and D takes me to the configuration file for Spacemacs. And then there's a few layers that are kind of nice to add by default for working with CFEngine. So we'll come down here and we'll uncomment some of these defaults for auto completion and Git and org mode and syntax checking, and then we'll add the CFEngine layer as well. All these layers, so Spacemacs has a built-in help system for finding information about any of the layers. So you can hit space, H for help, and then L for layers. And then you can type the name of a layer. So we can type in CFEngine, and then we can, oh, of course, that didn't load. Great, but you can pull up the documentation for any one of those layers. Space help layer, let's see, org. Boom, there's the docs for org layer. All right, so we'll go back FED to this config file. Also here in additional packages, org modern makes things look kind of nice in org mode. And then we have some user config. So I'm going to jump to the next definition, space S, J, and then I'm going to the user config in this file. So it'll jump me down to this function where I'm going to put user configuration. I've got all of that right here. So just a few things for org mode and CFEngine, minimal config. So first we got auto revert mode. So if the file changes on disk, it'll reload it in the editor automatically. A couple of key bindings for increasing and decreasing the text scale, control plus minus that are common, and then some configuration for org mode. So hide some of the markup indicators to make things look a bit nicer. Make sure that org modern is making things look a bit nicer. Startup indented makes things, again, look a bit nicer subjectively. And then a few languages to load for org Babel, which we will see. We want shell blocks and SQL, CFEngine, Python. This supports a ton of different languages, and it's super handy. Let's see. So at this point, this is kind of all the basic config you need for getting things up and going to work pretty well for CFEngine. So we want to restart the editor so that these layers can be activated and that their packages can be installed. So we're going to hit space, Q for quit, and then R to restart Emacs, and then it'll resume the layouts and bring us back to this file. So R, do you want to save this? Yes, I do. And it restarts, and now it's going to install a few more packages for those layers that we just enabled. Let's see here. So once this is done, the next thing that we're going to want to do is just check out some of the basics. We should be able to see that syntax highlighting for CFEngine policy files works, and look at things like function prototypes from ELDoc and on the fly syntax checking. All those things should kind of work after we're done installing these packages. Okay, it finished. It brought us back to our configuration file here. This is split. I've got messages in the bottom and I've got where I was in the top. But I would like to get rid of that bottom screen. So I'm going to go ahead and use some of the window management key bindings. So I'm going to hit space, W for Windows, and then M for maximizing this buffer. So, and I see that I've got some of these really ugly white space characters that snuck in a few places for my copy and paste, and I want to clean that up too. So I'm going to hit space, space, and then I'm going to start typing white space cleanup. and then it'll zap those. And now I can save this, space FS to save that file that I'm working in. And next thing I'm going to do is open that document that I was looking at. So space FF to find files. I know that it's in Vagrant README. So this is that same file that we were looking at here. Of course, we can see that it's folded, unlike some of the other stuff. We looked through some of this, so you can come to any of these headings. This is org mode. You can hit tab to expand and look into each one of these headings. We were just looking through configuring Spacemacs, and then we had gotten here to checking out some of the basics. So first thing that we want to do is like edit a policy file and see what it looks like. So I'm going to actually split this window in half so I can get my CFEngine policy file on the right. So I'm going to hit space WS. Oh, that put it on the bottom. So I'll hit space W capital L to move it to the left. And then here in the right hand side, I'm going to open that main.cf file that we're talking about. So I'll hit space FF, and then I'm going to go to .cf-agent inputs. And as I type, I get completions on the bottom, which I can tab complete. So services, main, enter, and now we can see got my policy file on the right and already have some syntax highlighting. All right. So next thing here, let's see here. Indeed, we have some. What happened here? Sorry, something took my cursor. All right. Oh, I can't edit this file, of course. All right. So next thing we want to look at here is syntax checking. So let's see here. I can do report. Oh, I got a bunch of red characters that tell me that I've got some errors going on. It's like 3 errors down here at the bottom of the screen. And then they're highlighted here as well. So I can look at the details of these errors. This is fly check. So I'm going to do space. Maybe I'm going to do space. Get out of insert mode. Space EL. So I can list the errors, and we can see here on line 15, syntax error. We expected a promiser, but we got report, which is not a valid anything. We fix this to a promise type. Now we can see all of our error messages disappear. And then I hit tab and it kind of just aligned that for me. So that's nice. Let's see here. We can look at the CFEngine layer also supports function prototypes, which is nice. So we can do something like, I'm going to do this, print out this stuff where I'm going to use a function. So something like string head, perhaps. Got a syntax error right now because I've got the beginning of a function. Now I have a function. And if we look down here in the very bottom, we can see the function prototype that string head returns a string. The first parameter is the input string, and then the second parameter is the maximum number of characters to return. So that's super helpful. So I can put in here, hello world. And then I can say maybe just the first 5 characters. And of course, I still have syntax errors because we're expecting to close this off with a semicolon. So syntax fixed. That looks all right. Now we can maybe pull this up. Let's go over here to inputs. Actually, we should just be able to run CFEngine. Bunch of errors because I'm unprivileged. Let's see if we got our hello. Did I not get my hello? Permission denied. Oh, you know what? I don't think I saved. Did I save that? There we go. Now I saved it. And I can just stay in my editor here. Let's split this down. e shell. So I can have a terminal right here inside of, now if I do CFEngine, there we go. We got our report that said hello, which came from right here. All right, so it's kind of basic usage, which is pretty nice. But we can make it even nicer. So Jeff Carlson is one of the community users, and he has published a very extensive set of snippets. I think it covers pretty much everything. I think all of the functions have snippets that expand all of the parameters. So it's handy to have this. So let's go ahead and take this. I'm gonna YY on this line to yank it. And then maybe, there we go. Then I'll insert it over here to make this directory. And I'll do the same thing with this git clone to clone his repository into the, this is not quite right. Looks like that's a mistake in my, let me delete this. That's the wrong directory. The snippets for the CFEngine mode actually need to be in the CFEngine 3 mode directory. CFEngine 3 mode. And then come over here.
And a quick shameless promotion, but we actually had Jeff on another previous episode of The Agent is In several months ago. So
yes,
if you're interested, you can check that out.
So there we go. Let's clone that to there. Okay, we've got his repository cloned into our private snippets directory for CFEngine 3 mode. And then the next thing that we want to do after we clone that down is reload the snippets. So it's using yas snippet. So yas, so it's space to run commands, and then yas dash reload dash all. So this should reload all of the snippets. And now if I come back up space WK to go up to this window, we can see if some snippets work. So we can do space I for insert and then S for snippets. And now you can see we have very many snippets related to CFEngine mode. Oh goodness, look at here. There's bigger than, right? So it starts expanding out the function for bigger than. We can do space IS, space IS, and then do bundle. So we can do an agent bundle, bundle agent example, and then you can see it completes it with all of the available promise types for agent bundles listed in the normal order, which is super useful. You can come through here and then just yank out all the stuff that you don't need, but it can help you write stuff a little bit faster. So thanks a lot for that, Jeff. Really appreciate all the work in those snippets. Of course, I don't remember if I mentioned org mode or not, but org mode is super great. And I really like to have a snippet for CFEngine in org mode where I can just lay down a little block and run that. So let's add that. We already made this because I made a mistake earlier. Next thing we want to do is create this file, which will be our snippet. So if I do space FF and then, oops, oh, that didn't work so well. We'll have to expand that out. Emacs.d private snippets org mode CF3. Oops, 3. All right, so now we've got our snippet file, and then this block here is just an example block. It's got org mode syntax inside of it, and to escape some of this, it uses these commas. So I'm not actually gonna just copy this directly, I'm going to edit special and enter this block. So that's a comma single quote. And then when you edit special any of these blocks, you're inside of the mode that's specific for this. Well, this is just an example, so it's just plain text, but you'll see that those commas are missing. And then you'll see soon why this is neat. So I just selected all of this, Y to yank it, comma C to close that. And then I'm going to switch back, oops, not to that one, space BB to CF3. So space BB is to switch to an open buffer. And there, I'm going to paste that in there. So this is the snippet. It's got some tab stops that'll expand as we get to that. So I'm going to save that, space FS, and reload snippets again. Yes, reload all. Yes, it's going to close the buffer with the snippet open. And now, if I come over here and I'm in org mode, see, these blocks can be folded and hidden just like a lot of other stuff in org mode. Super nice. But we can come in here in our org mode document and we can not actually use this because I can't edit this one. So I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to open a new file. Let's say home vagrant my.org. All right, so I've got an org file here. We can see that it's org mode down here at the bottom. And I'm going to do space IS to start inserting org mode snippets. There's only the one org mode snippet, RCF3 snippet. So I'm going to take that and you can see it hops me down into these tab complete stops. So we've got a bundle name, do my bundle, and you'll see that it's actually updating that text in every one of the places that same stop is referenced. So I've got a name now for my example bundle. I'll tab through again, and my bundle is a great example of how to use org mode with CFEngine 3. I can't spell very well. Okay, and I'll tab again, and there we go to the end. So we can do something like reports, hello world, and come back up here. So I'm just actually in org mode. So some of this indentation isn't great, but I'm going to go ahead and go into edit special. So I'm editing just this block of code, and then you'll see down here that we're actually in CFEngine 3 mode at this point. So I can select all of this text and hit tab, and it kind of does the indentation for everything. And since I'm in CFEngine 3 mode at this point, I can use all of Jeff's snippets in this little special block that I'm in. So if I do bundle agent here, another example, and I save this, and now I do comma C to finish, you can see it updated our block in our main file. I'm going to go ahead and delete this block. I don't need it. And now we've got this CFEngine 3 source block, and it takes a couple of header arguments. This is actually OB CFEngine 3, which enables this. And we're setting the log level output of the agent info. And then if we export this document, we'll export both the code block and the result output. So the result output is actually what makes this super cool, because if I put my insertion point somewhere inside of this CFEngine 3 block, I can hit comma B E to execute this block. Yes, I want to execute it. And then you can see right here, I get the output placed straight back in my buffer. And of course, if I edit this and run it again, I get the difference. So that's super great. It's a really good way to prototype little snippets or work on some issue if you want to see if the language supports something. Really good for that. Let me switch back to my README and see what's next. So yeah, that executes org babel, execute maybe. So So look at a couple other things here, a couple other features provided by Spacemacs that make it nice when you're working with CFEngine or other projects, really. Uses projectile for project management, and that allows you to do nice things to a whole collection of files. It'll automatically detect a project for version control repositories like Git, but also you can just put a .projectile file in any directory, and then that will make it the root of a project. So let's see here. Let's go ahead. So we saw it running the CFEngine 3 blocks. If we go back to my org, right, we ran this block, but some of the other blocks in this file are also executable. They're just different types, right? These are shell blocks. So here I can run this. There was no output, but if we look at there we go. It created that projectile file when I did "be" or org babel execute on the shell block. So this is super great because now I can run CFEngine code, shell code, Python code, many other languages, and you can do all sorts of other cool stuff. Like you can actually run these blocks on remote computers and then still get the output right back in your buffer, which makes updating tickets and keeping documentation up to date really handy. All right, so we've created this projectile file. And let's open that main.cf that we had open earlier inside of inputs. So now our local users' CF agent inputs are going to be part of a project. So we're going to do space B to search for open buffers. We've got this main.cf already in an open buffer here, so we're going to open that up. And now we're looking at a file that is inside, should be detected inside of a project. So if we do space P for project and then F for file, it's going to show us all the files that are part of this project. So it makes it really easy to jump back and forth between different files inside of this project, right? You can hop over to, well, this is the same one. Right, you can hop between any of the files that are in the project really easily. That's nice. All right, so let's see, what other tricks did we have from there? Oh yeah, project-wide search and replace. So that's super handy. All right, let's come over to here. So this main.cf, again, we're inside, it's inside of a project. So if we select this text, this function for string head, we can do a project-wide search and replace for string head, maybe replace it with string tail, space P for projects. Oops. Look at this, P for projects, right? P. And then should be recent F for that. There we go. Capital R is projectile replace, which is projects, so we'll do capital R. And then we're going to replace string head, which it's populated down here. We'll take yes. We want to replace that with string tail. And then we can see the options that are available for this project-wide replacement. We're going to say yes, we want to take that. And it jumped us on to the next file, files.cf, where file make is using string head and string tail. We're going to accept that. Replace all of these places so there's no more string head inside of my inputs. Of course, I don't really want to do that, so I'll hit U for undo a couple of times and get out of there. See here, also some nice shortcuts for like building and compiling. You're not compiling with the CFEngine project, but we hit space P, we can see that there is a test project. This is super handy for CFEngine, capital C. So we can do something like cf promises -cf update.cf cf promises-cf promises.cf And then, yeah, let's go ahead and save that one and save that one. So it'll go ahead and run those commands now. And then I got some errors about some files that my unprivileged user couldn't read. But I didn't get any like major errors, like syntax errors from the agent. So I know things are pretty okay. If I go back here to main.cf and I break this, introduce a syntax error, and now I'll do that project test again, space P capital T, and then run it. Oh, we can see we get that same syntax error output that we were seeing from flycheck over here about our syntax error. So let's fix that again. And now space P capital T, run, everything's good. So this makes it a whole lot easier to quickly check the syntax of your policy, things like that. Let's see here. What other cool things can we do? Well, there's also the run. We can do space P. Compile recent F. Run shell command finder. I thought there was a projectile run, but maybe my memory is incorrect. Validate cache. I don't see that. So just there we go. Run project. What does this do? Run command. CFEngine-KIF promises. .cf. There we go. Boom. Policy output. And then of course we did that global search and replace string head and tail, which is why we got URLed instead of hello like we got last time. Those commands for test and compile and run, you can define those based on the files that are detected so that those commands are pre-populated. You know, like if there is, let's see, master files packages.json, that's not right. We want this. Oh, that would be promises.cf there. And then project file, if it detects this, then it maybe use these commands for test and run. Maybe you do something different if you're using CFBS. And Git, well, we can do a little bit of Git stuff here. So Spacemacs makes it really easy to work with Git, also with Git forges. So you can do stuff like, without leaving your editor, open pull requests, assign reviewers, comment on pull requests, merge pull requests, all without leaving the comfort of your editor. It's super great. We're not going to do all of that, but we can go ahead and do a clone here. So we'll do space G for Git and version control, and then C for clone. We want to clone from URL. We'll give it that CFEngine Linux repository, enter, then it prompts us for a place to clone it to by default based on the current working directory of wherever you are. So we're going to go ahead and clone this to home vagrant CFEngine Linux and set the push default to origin where I'm cloning from. Yep, that's fine. That's my fork or my repo. And then it put us over here into this maggot status buffer, which is what we see right here. So it's maggot for the CFEngine Linux repository. And we can expand this to see some recent commits. From here, we can hit L to list the history of commits. Oops. We can go up and down. We can zoom in to see a specific change, who did it, when they did it, what they said about it, all that fancy stuff that you would like to do with Git. Once you have a Git repository, let's look at this. So let's hit space FJ. This should take us to a file browser, Diered or Dired. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but we can look through the policy this way. So if we come in here, let's look at the policy, main.cf, pull this up. Now, this is a file that's inside of a Git repository. When I start to do things, if I do space GS, oh, they don't want me to save that. Yes, I'll save that. Then we can start to do all the other fun stuff. We can see the unstaged changes. And then from here, we can accept these changes and stage them by pressing S with our insertion point here to get those ready to commit. And then we can go ahead and commit from here and push and do all kinds of fun things from here. You can also turn on things like git gutter and stuff like that so that you can see plus minus in the sidebars of your buffer to see which lines were added and removed. Lots of great stuff there. And that's the quick and dirty of setting up Spacemacs for CFEngine.
Well, cool. I think that pretty much wraps up episode number 12, and then also wraps up season 1 of The Agent Is In. So
I hope we get renewed.
I think we did get renewed for season 2. So
good.
Well, cool. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks everybody for being here.
Yep, we'll have links and stuff in the description for the recorded videos, and then you can slow it down and catch up a little bit slower with the fast key bindings that go through.
You wanna end it with your saying?
Like, subscribe, support us on all the places.
All right, thanks everybody.
Bye.